Search and Rescue by Quinn Avery. March 10th was just another glorious sunny afternoon in Second Life. The weather was fair, with 60 miles visibility, and the wind was out of the east at about 5 to 10 knots. It was a perfect spring day to take someone for a leash walk or go flying. Quinn just happened to be home in his hangar, rebuilding a gem of a little carburetor he picked up for 5 coin at the airplane scrapyard on Fiji. He was just finishing up and enjoying a cup of coffee when he gets a phone call that turns out to be different. His friend Carly, the airport manager at Yeager Field, had a very concerned tone in her voice when she said, "Quinn, hey, hi, I need your help." Carly went on to say that she just happened to be in the airport office when she heard a mayday crackle across the uncontrolled Yeager Field Airport Unicom frequency about 7 minutes ago. The pilot said, "Mayday, mayday, mayday, out of fuel, going down." Quinn's ears perked and hackles appeared. But when Carly keyed the mic to acknowledge the transmission, there was no reply. There are no coordinates, and she has no idea where the plane might be. There is even an outside chance that the plane is out 60 miles from here because the radios carry that far. She also said she called 2 other local pilots that also hangar at Yeager at their homes to come and assist in the search, and they have agreed, but acknowledged it'll require some driving time to get there, but they are currently en route to the airport. Quinn just happened to be the 3rd pilot Carly called. Oh no, Quinn gives a heavy sigh and agrees to participate in the search, and seems to be the only pilot around that can put a bird in the air. Quinn reassures Carly he will be in the air shortly and hangs up the phone. Quinn walks over and uses the hand cleaner on the wall to remove the grunge from his paws. Then he searches around for an almost clean shop rag to wipe them off with. Quinn, knowing the terrain well from all 4 paws on the ground, his first thought is to maybe search along the shoreline and the low-lying areas, but he suspects this will be the most likely place the other 2 pilots might start searching. Quinn thinks to himself, this raises a concern. If the 3 planes are all flying around in that same general location all at the same time, we may end up putting ourselves at risk, especially if we happen to be flying from opposite directions head-on. Since Quinn does not have radio communication with the other pilots at this time, there is no way to coordinate anything, and time is wasting. In a rescue situation's minutes count. So Quinn makes a command decision to start searching over the rolling Corsica Mountains, because this may be the last place the other 2 pilots might think to start looking. And maybe we could cover more ground in less time and meet up in the middle someplace. Well, that's the theory he's going on anyway. Setting down his empty coffee cup, Quinn scrambles into the seat of his Kronos Pit Special. He wipes the fresh dust off the fuel gauge lens and bypasses all the pre-flight checks. He sets the master switch on and yells, "Clear!" and just fires her up in the hangar, rolling out onto the skirt on an idle. As soon as the oil temperature gauge starts to move, Quinn makes a comm check back to Carly at base station to see if the other pilots have checked in. She says negative. They have not arrived at the airport yet. Their status still remains unknown and presumably are still en route. Quinn pushes in the throttle control and the engine guns as the little plane surges forward with excitement. He taxis it at a clip through the runway staging area and blows by the run-up. And from the moment the wheels leave the ground, the search begins. Quinn climbs to 70 meters, and for about 15 to 20 minutes, he searches in a meandering switchback pattern. Quinn travels over homes, municipal roads, trees, oil derricks, and miles of foothill trails heading out into the open countryside, flushing the occasional hawk, jackrabbit, and coyote from under their pucker bushes. We call them pucker bushes because when you run over them in full speed in a dune buggy, they leap the car high into the air clear off the ground, which makes your butt pucker. At a place in the topography between 2 neighboring foothills where the air is compressed and channeled into higher velocities than the adjacent areas, there, on a roadway intersection of Magellan Pass and Route 11, was an upside-down wooden 4-seater 1930s Type K1 Percival Vega Gull with folding wings resting on its top, with its wheels pointed skyward and a broken vertical stabilizer. Although the damage might look minor from the air, it would be a sad ending to a marvelous airplane if the pilot chooses not to repair her. Fortunately, Quinn could see the pilot was already out of the plane, standing, walking around, waving up at Quinn. Immediately, Quinn turns his little plane around and aileron rocks to say, "I see you." Then he turned the plane around and did it again, because he just likes to do that. Even as Quinn first flew past the downed plane's position, he was already on the horn back to Carly, calling off the search that the lost plane had been located, and made a request for emergency medical personnel to the HSI grid coordinates. Carly says, "Copy." Then, on a whim, knowing he had at least 15 to 20 minutes before EMS could arrive, Quinn took it upon himself and decided to go down and see if the pilot needed any further assistance. While Quinn was planning his approach to put down, it became apparent by watching the wind effects on the pucker bushes that the downed pilot had attempted to land downwind, obviously misjudging his landing speed and distance, and just ran out of cobblestone roadway. Now, there wasn't much room for Quinn to land either, but he wanted to park next to the downed plane, not across the field. So Quinn sized up the situation and made a brilliant crosswind landing, rolling up to the stop 20 feet from the downed plane, shutting down his Continental engine. Just as the prop kicked over for the last time, the downed pilot had walked up to Quinn in his cockpit, quite dazed and disoriented from the adrenaline dump, and just started talking about what happened. Quinn greeted the man and leaped out of his pits to go over and assess the damage on the plane. The pilot volunteered that his engine started to sputter, and he tried to switch tanks, but found the second tank was empty as well. Between doing that and trying to find Yeager's frequency, calling in a mayday, and choosing a landing site, he overshot his target upwind approach. However, when he tried to pick the nose up and turn the plane around for a second pass, the engine up and quit on him, and he had to glide to a landing downwind, which took twice as much runway as he expected. The pilot said he'd successfully gotten the plane on the ground, but then on the very last bit of braking, it hit the street curb edge, and in a very slow motion, the plane pitched over onto its nose and ever so gently came to rest on its top. Peeking into the plane, Quinn notices that for the pilot to have gotten out of the plane, he had to unbuckle his seatbelt and fall out of his seat about 8 inches, bumping his head in the process. Quinn looks for symptoms of concussion, but the pilot seemed very grateful to still be alive. About this time, off in the distance, about 2 sims away, Quinn could hear the distinct high-pitched whine of a very large, powerful jet engine, and he knew the cavalry had arrived. Quinn said goodbye to the grateful man and quickly got back in his plane. And back into the air to avoid questions as to why he landed a plane on a municipal street, and avoid the possibility of getting his plane seized as well. In a mere moment, Quinn was aloft again, rocking the wingtips over the accident site to show the search and rescue folks exactly where the downed plane was. When the emergency management team flashed their landing lights at Quinn, it was a thank you and to acknowledge that they understood. Quinn just pitched the nose up and headed off into the west. The end.